When people build homes, they include flooring that they believe will be long-term and last them a lifetime. From a cleaning perspective, hardwood floor might seem like the clear choice. From a biomechanical perspective and looking at injury prevention for seniors, more people might consider putting carpet in old age homes. This can be explained by Newton's second law and the impulse-momentum relationship. Newton's second law states that force equals mass times acceleration. Considering we know that acceleration equals the change of velocity over the change in time, we can expand this simple formula out to say that force equals mass times the change in velocity over the change in time. If we continue to expand this equation out, we will eventually reach the impulse and momentum relationship. This means that force times the change in time equals the mass times the change in velocity. The momentum is the quantity of motion of a moving body, and it is dependent on the mass and the velocity. The impulse is the product of the force times time, and it can be defined as a change in momentum. This means to cause a change in momentum, you need to have a change in impulse. There are two main applications to the impulse-momentum relationship. The first application involves increasing the time to decrease the force. This one is important in sports performance and also in preventing injuries. The second application is increasing impulse as a whole, so increasing the force and the time to maximize velocity. This one's important in sports performance. So, going back to flooring in a senior's home, we're obviously not worried about sports performance as much as we're worried about injury prevention. So our focus will be on the first application of the impulse-momentum relationship about increasing time to decrease the force. For these calculations and for the momentum, we're going to assume that the senior falls from the same initial height in both situations. So no matter what floor they fall on, the carpet or hardwood, they're going to have the same initial velocity because they fell from the same initial height. The final velocity is always going to be 0 because this is when the floor stops them when they hit the ground. And we know that their mass is going to be constant because this is the mass of their body, which is not going to change as they fall. Just as an example, let's assume that a senior that is falling has a mass of 50 kilograms and an initial velocity of 2 meters per second. When the stopping time is 1 second, the force is going to be 100 newtons. Over here, when the stopping time is 2 seconds, the force that is exerted by the floor is only going to be 50 newtons. So this means that when the stopping time is increased, the force is decreased because the force is exerted over the longer period of time. If a senior was to fall on carpet like this carpet, their injury risk would be less, and this is because the stopping time is increased for when their body hits the ground. So the floor provides, it's like a cushion, so when you land on it, the stopping time is increased, and by doing this, the force that is produced by the ground to stop the body is exerted over a greater time, and by the force being exerted over a greater time, the injury risk on the senior is going to be less, which is really important. If a senior was to fall on the hardwood floor, like this floor here, there is very, very little cushion, and it's a very hard surface. So when the senior was to fall to this floor, the stopping time would be very short. This means that the force would be increased and the injury risk would be increased. So in conclusion of this project, seniors are going to have falls, and there's nothing we can really do to prevent that, but what we can do is prevent injury risk from the falls, and by adding carpet to seniors' home, we can reduce the force by increasing the time, the first application of the impulse momentum, and that can help with the injury risk.